The following film has been made from the true written memoirs of the late Ben Bailey, boatman and lifeboatman of Deal in Kent. This story gives a short description of the Silvia Oronato, which became a total loss on the Goodwin Sands. I would like to thank Ben's daughter Coral, who has given permission for Ben's memoirs to be kept alive and go into the history of Deal. It was on Friday, January the 2nd, 1948. Ben Bailey and his crew were out fishing for sprats. The weather was dull with fog and poor visibility, and a heavy rain was coming down, a stiff breeze blowing. There were several other boats out sprat fishing, including Freddie Upton in his motorboat Star of the Sea. At around 2:50 p.m, when the fog lifted, the Coast Guard saw that there was a ship aground on the Goodwin Sands. She turned out to be the 2,327-ton Italian steamer Silvia Oronato, bound from Rijeka in Yugoslavia to Rotterdam, carrying 2,933 tons of plumbago. The Maroons were fired, and this caused pandemonium among the Deal spratters, who buoyed their nets and hurried ashore, leaving other boatmen to recover the nets for them. The lifeboat launched at 3:20 p.m, 9 minutes after authorization. They had to steam through a terrible mile of broken water on the Goodwins to reach the ship, with seas reaching a height of some 40 feet. On arriving to where the ship was grounded, it was found impossible to stop alongside her. The seas were huge, and the lifeboat was rising well above her bridge height every time a huge swell lifted her up. On one occasion, the lifeboat struck a glancing blow on the ship's deck. The captain refused to abandon the ship and told the lifeboat, "My ship is my life. My ship go, I go," he shouted. There was only enough water around the ship to float the lifeboat for 2.5 hours every 12 hours. The lifeboat returned ashore on Saturday and refueled. The crew had a change of clothing and some food. Then they launched again at 9:15 hour. Again they stood by the vessel throughout the night in severe weather conditions, and a couple of hours before dawn the lifeboat steamed through the broken water and got within loud hailing distance. They asked the captain to come off the ship while the lifeboat had sufficient water under her keel. Once more the captain replied, "No, ship, she tight, in one piece, crew stay, no come." That night the wind freshened to a full-blown gale, and the Silvia Oronato was still aground on the Goodwin Sands. The crew of the vessel had decided to stop aboard, hoping she would float off on the next high water. The lifeboat, meanwhile, had to leave her and lay off in deeper water inside the Goodwins. For several days the crew refused to leave the ship. Every time the tide flowed, the lifeboat went in to try and take off the crew, but they wouldn't leave. During the lifeboat's long ordeal, standing by this ship, they were offered no food or drinks, and the captain told them only lifeboatmen could come aboard. He said, "I don't want you, I want tugs to get my ship off." On Sunday, the lifeboat again returned to shore. They relaunched at 3 p.m. and spent their third night at sea. Ginge went aboard on the first occasion and was welcomed with open arms. The captain asked for bearings and Ginge gave directions. The captain's attention was also brought to wrecks that lay close to his ship. As dusk fell at 4:30 p.m, the lifeboat informed the Coast Guards that the captain was still refusing to abandon the ship. It was blowing quite hard, and a message had been wirelessed to the ship from Hammond's at Dover, telling the skipper of an approaching storm coming. Suddenly the captain shouted to us he had changed his mind, most likely influenced by the weather warning that had just come from Lloyd's in Dover. A severe gale of force 9 with 53-mile-an-hour wind gusts was imminent. Hauling up on the ship, after a heavy steam in bad weather, the lifeboat went in close to the ship and stood by, and after a while the crew indicated that they wanted to abandon ship. It was a tricky job, but Freddie came in alongside her a number of times. The crew were hanging on ladders which were hanging over the ship's side. Ginger Thomas and Ben Bailey grabbed the crewmen as they jumped aboard the lifeboat. They had a bit of a shock when a large Alsatian dog was balanced on the rail for them to grab, as the lifeboat was lifted high up the ship's side on another wave. Fred Upton took off the Alsatian, which behaved like a perfect gentleman. It took the lifeboat quite a while to get the crew and 2 stowaways off the ship in severe conditions, but eventually they succeeded. Coming home across the sands, conditions were so bad that they had to stop engines while climbing head into the seas, or all would have been washed overboard. The vessel broke her back on Tuesday the 13th of January. The severe gales never gave any chance of recovery. Large crowds waiting along the shore gave a loud cheer when the lifeboat burnt her landing flare. Among the crowd were police to escort 2 stowaways to the police station. Despite the extra load of 30 crew members, Fred Upton beached safely at 6:15 p.m. Everybody on the beach dashed forward eager to help. The ship's crew were taken to the sailors' home in Dover. If it had been 1.5 hours later, Fred Upton said, we would never have got them off that night.